All right, this time we're doing movies that are kids' movies. They're either movies aimed at kids or movies in which a kid is the central star or, central character. So, yeah, it's kind of nebulous, I know. But anyways, it's fun. It'll be fun, I swear. Stick with me. So number 10, we're going to go with a movie that shook up an old concept or an old story trope, but it was usually used with more adult thrillers, and that's the endangered witness, and the person that saw something, either a crime or was given something, and it was done numerous times. Foul Play was one of my favorites, where it mixed that in with a comedy setting, but this 80s movie mixed it up by having the central character being a kid. And you all think I'm going to say Witness, but I'm not. I'm going to say Cloak and Dagger. Henry Thomas played the kid in question in this film, and Dabney Coleman is playing the cool investigator character that he often imagines going on adventures with, etc. And he witnesses this this murder and is given an Atari cartridge with secret stuff in it. So, I mean, how do you not love that combination? We're like mixing gaming and Atari cartridges with like traditional Hitchcockian spy thriller tropes. Cloak and Dagger. Love it. So that's number 10. Number 9 is a film that is a little more adult in themes and story material, but still has a kid in the center of it. So, and this time it's Lucas Haas portraying the kid. And you all think I'm going to say Witness, but I'm not. I'm going to say Lady in White. And he is this kid, again, subjected to bullying and locked inside a cloakroom, and creepy things go on overnight, and he encounters a ghost, and then starts to unravel this murder mystery that's been haunting this town for many, many years. And I love that whole concept of creating an inner sanctum for kids, like kids that are bullied or something, that place you can escape to and either explore flights of fancy or whatever, or just read or whatever, which may be a hint at something else, or in this case, experience contact with ghosts. But I love that kind of like you're hermetically sealed from the rest of society, and in this little space. Flashes me back to, not because I was bullied or anything, but I had this huge walk-in closet because for some reason my parents decided to take the smaller bedroom when I was growing up and give me the master bedroom with the huge walk-in closet. So that turned into my like hideout, my tree fort, basically, because I didn't have a proper tree fort. So I had like a bed in there and a little table, like a card table, and a typewriter, and I could sit in there and read The Hobbit by my tiny desk lamp. Yeah, it was good times. So this film kind of tapped into a lot of those nostalgic kind of vibes, because this came out a little bit later in the 80s, 88 I think, but yeah, Lady in White is cool. There's a nice Pioneer special edition Laserdisc, but of course it's also been put out, I think Shout Factory put it out on Blu-ray, but you got options. Number 8 is The Great Muppet Caper, and that was a film I saw as a kid, so more marketed towards kids, in the early 80s, and I loved the Muppet movie, but something about The Great Muppet Caper kicked it up a notch for me. And it's, the Muppets are, in this one, they're journalists, and they're trying to solve a jewelry heist, and Miss Piggy is the client of the film, and so it's fun. It puts the Muppets in a different context and this jewel heist environment, so it's like a Pink Panther film but with Muppets instead of Clouseau, and it was just a lot of fun. And it was like one of those early 80s just like knockout punches. Everybody was just firing on all thrusters when it came to fantasy and genre and just any kind of adventure and action films at the time. So yeah, The Great Muppet Caper. Number 7, I kind of tipped my hat on this earlier, talking about kids being locked away reading. It's a never-ending story. And yes, I apologize for not having this in my fantasy list, but yeah, it is about a young child who's not connecting with people, and also has to deal with bullies, and he has this fantastical book that's a metaphor for the transformative journey a reader experiences when reading, where it feels more real than the reality that you're in every day. And so that it takes it to like another extreme, and has this magical kingdom that's being chewed up by nothingness, essentially, and has a bunch of super cool kid characters in the film too. So it's not just you as a kid living vicariously through an adult, because as a kid you often see yourself older than you are. But this was one of those interesting, cool case scenarios where the characters were kids and they were cool and could do all these crazy adventures. And then of course there's Falcor, who's the most badass luck dragon around, and just interesting stuff and a bit of weirdness to it, because it's also very European. Not to say that Europeans are weird, sorry. But Wolfgang Petersen helming it, and of course it's got the Lamal song that everybody knows and loves, and if you didn't know it and love it already, you do, because of Stranger Things season 3. But it's got like a little bit of, it's got a non-Hollywood particular kind of tone to it, which is what makes it unique. So yeah, never ending story. Number 6, which maybe this should be higher on my list, but I talked about it in my Laserdisc Pickups video, and it is Joe Dante's Explorers. Again, kids in the 80s dealing with issues at school, etc., dealing with girls and bullies and things like that, and also being interested in science and being contacted possibly by aliens, and then this leading to all the sorts of interesting scientific discoveries. Real fascinating stuff. A case can be made for this film being a little too schizophrenic. In the first half of the film, it's more about these kids, their personal lives, their school lives, and this scientific journey they're on. And then the second half just turns more into a not a full cartoon, but obviously it's inspired by cartoons, but full on like crazy flights of fancy and more like sci-fi comedy material. So yeah, they might not sit together well for you, and that might not be where you want this film to go. It's kind of like the Close Encounter Special Edition thing. Like maybe there should be a version of this film where it ends, where they start to go on their journey, as opposed to what they find. But I enjoyed the film a lot when I saw it the first time on cable. I didn't see it theatrically, sadly, but it connected with me, and it was one of those cases too where my parents were like, "Yeah, that got goofy at the end," but I'm like, "Yeah, that movie was awesome." Yeah, stuck with me. Love it. Explorers. Number 5, I did see theatrically more than once, thankfully. Short Circuit. Ali Sheedy, kicking ass at the time. Steve Guttenberg kicking ass at the time. Fisher Stevens, a little cringy, but Johnny Five was the coolest robot around, and we delighted in his shenanigans. At the time, if it wasn't broke, don't fix it. So, if you don't have a space alien, get a robot. Anything post Star Wars, E.T. was, involving cute aliens and or robots and their shenanigans. But this one, mixed a little kind of military industrial complex intrigue into the scenario, where the beloved robot is also a quote unquote war machine, a killing machine that's gone rogue and sentient, and is just delighted at being a newborn babe out in the world and exploring everything that Ali Sheedy's apartment or her house contains. It's fun stuff. It's funny now, the sequel is more beloved, or people at least like it as much as the original, but when it came out it was a shocking disappointment, and it still is. I don't care what you say. The second one is just, it never captures any of the heights of the first film, so it is what it is. Short Circuit, though, the proper film. It's awesome. Number 4. Yes, this wasn't in my anime list, and I'm cheating and putting in this list. I feel like this list feels like a cheat, but it's not. It's actually a cool list. My Neighbor Totoro. Yes, Hayao Miyazaki's late 80s film. It's just delightful. It's got these two girls, Mei and Satsuke. They're living with their dad in this new countryside house that they're moving into, but their mom is in a hospital at the same time. But it's so very non-Western in its storytelling, and it's fun watching it as a Westerner, because you expect all these elements that are in there to be story tropes, and they turn out not to be, and you're like, oh, well, that's delightful, or that's different, so you expect it to be really manipulative and very Hollywood, and it's not. So it's really cool, experiencing that, and being unaware of where it's going and its intentions. And Totoro's the coolest, man. And you got a cat bus in it. Who doesn't want to take a ride in the cat bus? I mean, it's a no-brainer. Everybody knows and loves the film now, and you can walk into the mall and get a stuffed Totoro. So it's the cat's out of the bag, so to speak, on this one, but it's on the list. Number 3, Stand By Me. Yeah, and this was a little bit older. This could have gone on a more of a teens list, or tweens list, what have you. But yeah, it's still about kids. And it's one of those shocking bits of Stephen King adaptation history in which one of his stories that isn't necessarily focused on utter horror connected and with audiences, you could even say, far deeper than any of his horror film adaptations. So this definitely paved the way for films like The Shawshank Redemption. But yeah, it's an adaptation of a short story called The Body, and it's a bunch of kids. It's a film about nostalgia. It's about a writer remembering these golden years. But again, also some bullying in the mix too. There's a generation older of kids in the film. So these main kids are often tormented by them. So it deals with that dynamic, and just small town living and discovery of something interesting and scary, and that journey it goes on from there. Yeah, how do you not love Stand By Me? It's great. Rob Reiner directed, and you should get a copy of it on Blu-ray or something. Just saying. Number 2, I didn't see this theatrically at all. My parents had no interest in it, and again, it was one of those moments where it's like, I kind of want to see that, And then I did see it on cable, and loved it. And that's Richard Donner's Goonies. Yeah, I mean, you gotta love some Goonies. I came at this a little later than a lot of my friends too. I think I kind of resisted it for a while. I don't know, maybe I took on my parents' attitude of towards it, and it was kind of one of those Lost Boys things. I didn't really care about seeing Lost Boys when it came out too, and then I finally saw it, because you would take a chance on things with HBO or any of the movie channels and stuff like that. If it was on, sometimes you'd be like, I'll stick around, I'll watch this for a little bit. And that was the case with the Goonies, and I was like, damn it charmed me. The cast you all know, so I don't even have to get into it. The story and it's got the Truffle Shuffle, obviously, and pirate treasure, and it's the story is nothing new. It's that old, place A is going to be torn down by corporate interest B, and the only way to get around it is mysterious acquisition of money C, and that was used multiple times in the 80s. Usually it was some sort of race or contest, but this one had a whole kind of underground expedition and journey into the past, and yeah, it's lovely. Goonies. And number 1. This movie sent shockwaves through pop culture. At the time, really just tapped into something primal. Interestingly, though, it isn't as beloved as a lot of its other peers at the time now. I mean, people still enjoy the film, but at the time, it was as heavy a hitter as Star Wars. I mean, it was that huge. But its impact isn't felt in quite that way today, even though people still look fondly upon it, which is interesting. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Steven Spielberg's E.T. I had the luck of seeing this. I've told the story in other probably live streams or something like that. But I had the joy of seeing this film very early because there was a preview screening, and I mentioned when I saw Lady Hawk at a preview screening. This was probably the earliest of those, in which I mean the earliest screening ahead of the actual release date. It was, I want to say a month, but it might not have been that, because time feels longer when you're a little bit younger, and I was on the cusp of turning 10 at the time, maybe. So I'd come back from a family vacation. Actually, it was a split vacation. I was with my dad's family in Old Lyme, Connecticut at a rental property, while my parents were camping in Pennsylvania or something like that. And then we reconvened and went back home and was just looking at the paper, and that night, I think it was a Saturday evening, there was a preview screening of E.T. And we're like, well, we're doing this. So we went out and saw E.T. crazily in advance of the film's release, and the free screening that came after it was Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid, which I loved Steve Martin, I loved The Jerk, but I had no way of processing what it was spoofing, and I really had no knowledge of film noir properly at the time, classic Hollywood films, and yeah, so it just totally went over my head. Plus it was a little bit late when that film finally got out. I swear it was after midnight by the time we got out into the parking lot. And not that many people stayed around for Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid after E.T. But anyways, E.T. proper, yeah, it's a crushing movie, and it's like Spielberg didn't even, I think, even know what he had in his hands when he was making it. But, and the Spielberg documentary, it was on HBO a couple of years ago, definitely chews into some of the thematic juju of the film, where it's dealing with fatherhood and abandoning fatherhood, and so I mean, as a child that was a product of divorce in the 70s, like, this movie definitely hit home. And you have Henry Thomas playing a kid who's trying to figure out and navigate this reality in which his father has abandoned him, and he still has a brother and a sister, thankfully, and a mom, Dee Wallace, in there, and Drew Barrymore, of course, is great as his little sister. But there's that whole thing of, like, you discover something that's just for you, and that'll help you navigate through life. And in this case, it just happens to be this alien stowaway, this alien hitchhiker who was left behind. And Peter Coyote is terrifying in the film, even though he doesn't have a ton of ill intent, but just what he represents and everything. I love that whole concept of just adulthood in general being the enemy, not because of an intention to kill you or anything like that, but just what you represent, and your short-sightedness, even if it's unknowing, is still a roadblock. And yeah, so I love that whole kind of adults equals danger situation going on in the film. And yeah, there was just so much to love. The alien puppetry and the makeup effects, etc., were great. And yeah, maybe because E.T. isn't quite as cuddly as one would expect from a treacly Spielberg film from the 80s. He's a little hard to love. But yeah, we loved him back in the day. E.T. was great. Yeah, there's multiple copies out there. Don't get the one with the guns replaced with cell phones or whatever. Yeah, just try and get the original one. And there's a beautiful Signature Collection box set on Laserdisc if you want to hunt that down. They were sealed copies galore back in the day, so you should be able to get one pretty cheap on eBay. Or just get it on DVD or Blu-ray, in which case, your life will be complete. E.T., number 1 on my list of kids' movies.